I think we can all agree that there's nothing quite like falling for your first love. I'm surprised that it's taken me this long to share this story with you guys, because this story is one of the most pivotal stories of my coming out experience. The reason that I came out of the closet is because of this guy that I'm going to talk about today. I never thought I was going to tell anyone that I was gay. I was just going to hide it and stuff it away. But when I met him, I fell so in love that I just had to share with the world that I was gay. This is a story that means a lot to me because it was a very big part of my coming out experience. So I'm going to tell you guys the story today about the time that I fell in love with a boy for the very first time. Now, before I dive into that story, I want to give a quick shout out to this video sponsor, which is Roman. Some guys don't want to talk about ED because they are embarrassed about it. They don't want to talk to the doctor about it. They don't want to go to the doctor's office. It's something that guys sometimes feel ashamed of, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. The only problem is when you don't do something to fix it. With Roman, this eliminates all the reasons why you wouldn't want to treat your ED. All you do is you go to the website, you sign up, you're connected to a real licensed physician, and they decide if you're a good candidate for treatment for ED. It's a very easy process. I can show you on screen right now how easy it is to be signed up for this. If the physician decides that you're a good candidate for treatment for ED, then they send you a box of treatment options in very discreet packaging, so you don't have to worry about anyone knowing your business. You maintain your privacy, and you don't even have to leave the comfort of your own home. So if you guys want to check out Roman, because I'm mentioning them in this video, you can get a free consultation if you go to my link. Go to getroman.com/Travis. Thank you to Roman for sponsoring this video, and now let's get into the story of the time that I first fell in love. So this story takes place a very, very long time ago. I was still going to school at Oklahoma State University. This actually takes place along the same timeline of the time that I fell for a straight guy. If you missed that story time, you can check it out right here. But basically, in this time, the straight guy situation was really confusing, and I met this other boy that I really fell hard for. This guy reached out to me at the peak of MySpace. Yes, it was that long ago. When this guy reached out to me, I looked at his profile, and he was absolutely gorgeous. He had beautiful brown eyes. He was Italian. On his profile, I learned that he was a film student at UT in Austin, Texas, which was the first problem because Stillwater and Austin, Texas are 7 hours apart. But when I saw this guy and when I started talking to this guy, I fell very quickly because it was the first time that I felt what I was supposed to feel when I was attracted to someone. This was a really exciting time for me because as we connected and as we talked, we started building some sort of connection. But the problem was we didn't ever know when we were going to connect. So we talked for several months. I think it was about 4 months before something finally came up where I had the opportunity to go down to Austin. I had 2 girlfriends at that time who were going to Austin to go to Jason Mraz's concert. I still remember it so clearly. They were gonna drive to Austin for this concert and they asked me if I wanted to go. So the weekend finally pops up and we're going for a 1-night trip where you literally have a hotel room for 1 night. We're gonna drive down there 7 hours for the concert and then drive 7 hours back the next day. But I knew that I wasn't going to go to that concert. So when we got to the hotel and checked in, I suddenly, oh my God, I feel so sick. Oh God, oh no. What's wrong with you? You were fine like 20 minutes ago. I'm like, no, I got the itis. Like, what's the itis? I don't know, it's just something that came over me. Oh, Lord, can we turn off the AC? Long story short, I convinced them that I was sick and that I couldn't go to the concert. So the girls leave without me. They're very suspicious about this. And of course, the second right after they left, I took that cold towel off my head and I jumped out of bed and I texted Micah. We're gonna call him Micah for this video. I texted Micah and I told him that I was in town for 1 night. And he was like, what? That's so crazy. Do you wanna do something? And I was like, oh my God, yeah, let's do something. So he was going out to a bar later that night and he invited me to come along with him. So I decided to go meet up with him. I drove downtown to Austin on like 4th and Lavaca, but I was so nervous because I'd never been to a bar ever at that point, and I was going to meet this guy that I'd been talking to for 6 months. I, put on all my fierce cologne. I was in a cloud of fierce cologne, like, you're gonna love me. You're gonna love me, and that's all it's gonna take. So I sat in the parking garage right beneath where the bar was, and I knew that he was upstairs in the bar, but I took a deep breath, I collected myself, and I went inside and I met him for the first time. When I walked in, I spotted him right away. He was wearing this nice leather jacket. I still remember it to this day. He looked so handsome, and when I went over and gave him a hug, he hugged me so tight, and I smelled him for the first time. And it wasn't just his cologne, I could smell his scent, and it's exactly what I wanted it to be. My heart was beating out of my chest because I was so nervous, I was so excited. It was such an invigorating experience, and for the first time in a long time, I finally felt like I was alive. I was a little nervous when we first met because I wasn't sure how we were going to connect in real life, because talking on MySpace is different than in real life, but we had such great chemistry and such great energy, and he was just a really kind person, so driven, so compassionate, so interested in my life, and I just felt happy. I just felt happy. So finally, we leave the bar after a couple of drinks and we go back to his place. He invites me back to his place to see his apartment, you know, like they always do. They always want you to see their damn apartment. Like, let's be honest, this is a 2-bedroom and a walk-up, okay? What's so special about your apartment? And then he drops his pants and I said, oh, are they taking applications? No, we get back to his apartment and he shows me his place and he shows me one of the short films that he's working on because again, like I said, he's working in film. He's planning to move to Los Angeles after he's done with school. But his roommate comes home who's apparently like sharing the living room area, so we don't have a lot of privacy. So I wish I could say that the first time we hooked up was like a really magical, beautiful experience. Like I'm thinking like rose petals on the bed and he like lowers me into the bed, moves my long brown hair out of the way. No, that ain't what happened. He took me to the balcony where I could see a 7-Eleven down below and that's where we hooked up. Oh my God, my mom is so proud about this story. It was one of the first experiences that I had such a strong emotional connection with a guy that beyond the sexual gratification, I also had the emotional gratification, which is far, far more intense. So we hooked up and I made it back just in time before the girls got back to the hotel and I put the cold rag over my face and I was like, oh my God, I got so much fever, The girls kind of do the side eye, but they kind of let it go, and to this day, I don't think they ever knew what I actually did that night. Over the next few months, we continued to connect and that relationship started getting deeper and deeper. Cause you know why? Cause I got hypnotized. I got hypnotized by the and then suddenly I wasn't thinking straight anymore. That's the only explanation I can have for what happened next. Because one thing led to the next and I decided that I was going to give up my full ride scholarship at Oklahoma State University to move to Austin. Travis. You have to understand that at this time in my life, I was kicked out of my home just a few years before. I didn't have any family to turn to, and because of that, I invested all of my hope for finding belonging and feeling love in relationships. And this was the first time that I had the potential of finding that love, so I was willing to do whatever it took to get that. Now, when I told Micah about this, he wasn't nearly as excited as I was. We'd been talking for a very long time. It was a fun, light, developing relationship, but moving to Austin, to the same city where he was at, I think he was a little bit concerned, as any normal person would be, because he wanted to make sure that I wasn't doing this for him. I was a little bit disappointed that he wasn't as excited as I was, but I convinced him and myself that I was moving to Austin to go to film school. I knew that there wasn't a film program at Oklahoma State University, and that's why I was giving up my full ride scholarship so I could go study film at UT. UT is $30,000 a year for tuition. That would be something I would pay attention to later on, but for the time being, all that mattered to me was getting to Austin to start my life with Micah. Please don't do this. If you fall in love with someone, please do not move to be with them. But I did, and here's what happened. So finally the time comes that I'm going to move to Austin. I finish up my last semester at Oklahoma State University and I'm going to go to Austin to start my life. I had asked Micah if I could stay with him while I got my living situation sorted. He said that would be fine. So the night finally came that I was leaving, and that was January 20th. I remember that it was January 20th because that was the day before my birthday. I wanted to be in Austin and spend my birthday with Micah because I felt that would be a great beginning to my next chapter. So this was the day that I also came out to my father, because going from Stillwater, Oklahoma, I drove down to Edmond and I came out to my dad. I had that experience, which you can check out right here. And then I drove the 7 hours down to Austin to be with the love of my life. I was so excited. I had Kelly Clarkson blasting through the speakers. I had my whole car packed full of everything that I owned. By the time I got to Texas, it was pouring rain. The rain was coming down so hard, it was a very dangerous drive. But instead of pulling over, I decided I would go all the way to his place because I just wanted to see him that bad. By the time I got there, it must have been like 11 or 12 o'clock at night, and Micah wasn't there. I texted Micah and I was like, hey, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, sorry, out at the club. And I was like, okay, well, I'm here. So he goes, okay, be there soon. So he texts me and he tells me he's gonna be there shortly, and I just kind of wait in my car in the pouring rain, waiting for Micah to get back. 2 hours passed and finally Micah shows up in a cab. I see him stumbling to his door. I get out and I go to greet him and he barely even recognizes me because he's so drunk. So I helped him get inside and I took off his wet jacket and I took off his shoes. So we start making out. I take off the rest of his clothes. He takes off my clothes and I put him on the bed, and then we start to hook up. As we start to hook up, I kind of like lean down and like kissing his body, and then suddenly he passed out. So I tuck Micah in and I crawl into bed with him and I put my arms around him and we fall asleep. Then the next morning happens. The next morning, I wake up in bed and I hear Micah's voice in the other room. I could just hear him having this very heated conversation in the other room. I wasn't sure what was happening, but it seemed pretty intense. I've never heard him really raise his voice ever in the time that I've known him, so I'm wondering what's going on, but of course, I figure it's a private moment, so I just kind of let him do his thing. Finally, he walks back into the bedroom, and he looks a little bit white in the face. I see him, I'm like, hey, good morning, and he says, good morning. He shuts the door behind him, and I sit up in bed, and I'm like, how'd you sleep? Fine. I slept fine. So I sit up in the bed, and I'm like, what? What's going on? Micah keeps his eyes to the ground. He won't look me in the face. He comes and sits at the foot of the bed. I don't really know how else to say this right now, but I just got off the phone with my boyfriend. What? I'm in a 2-year relationship. What do you mean? I've been with my boyfriend for the last 2 years, and things have been rocky, and that's kind of where you came into the picture, but I have to be honest with you, and we're still together. Oh. Oh. Does he know about me? No. And that's the thing. I want to talk more about this with you, and I'll answer whatever you want to know, but I need to know if you can leave. Leave? Where do you want me to go? I don't know. A hotel? Why do I have to go to a hotel? Because, Trav, he's coming over right now. I don't want him to see you. Okay. Okay. I didn't say anything else. I was in such shock because I'm the eternal optimist and I always see the best in people, and I never in my life would have imagined someone doing something like that. So it completely blindsided me. So I didn't say anything. I didn't know how else to respond. I had just given up my whole life to come down here to be with him, and I was then driving to a hotel, which I then used the last bit of my money to check into this hotel. So I sat down on that bed and my phone just kept vibrating because it was my birthday. So people were sending me message after message wishing me a happy birthday and hoping that I'm having the best time in Austin. And I was sitting there alone in this hotel room, wondering how I made the biggest mistake of my life. Finally, that evening, I got a phone call from Micah and he asked me if I wanted to grab dinner. So I said yes. He sat me down at dinner and we talked for a little bit. He explained a little bit more of the situation, but there wasn't really much else than what I'm telling you right now. Basically, he was going through a rocky time and he was kind of using me in the meantime as something to distract him while he was fighting his way out of that relationship. That was obviously very hurtful, but then at that point he said, I need you to go stay somewhere else. And I was like, I don't know where I'm supposed to stay. And he's like, I can't help you with that because as long as I'm with my boyfriend, I can't have you staying in my apartment. So that night we separated from dinner. He bought me dinner for my birthday and I went to a bar and I met someone that night who let me move in with him for the next few weeks. Now the next few months after that were a whole different story. It was a lot of stressful experiences because I was going from couch to couch to couch, trying to get my footing because I had no money, I had no job, and I also could not afford the tuition for UT. So I'd really given up my entire life for this situation, and it was one of the biggest mistakes that I had ever made up to that point in my life. One thing led to the next. Austin didn't work out, so I eventually moved back to Colorado, and that's where this story ends. So that was the first time that I fell in love. That was the first time that I had my heart broken. It was one of the most devastating heartbreaks of my life. It really set the precedent for how guarded I became going forward, but that only was the beginning. It was the first time that I'd fallen for someone, and I really still do hold on to the fact that, at least at that time, I had opened up my heart enough to fall in love with someone, and it also pushed me to come out and accept who I truly was. So there was good that came out of it. But one thing that I want to say is that when you fall in love with someone, you can do it. Let go, feel. enjoy that experience, but please do not lose or give up parts of yourself to make that relationship work. When you give up your life for another person, it's inevitably going to break. So make sure that no matter how in love you fall with somebody else, you keep a part for yourself, because that's going to matter far more than your relationship with them ever will. A big thank you to Roman again for sponsoring this video. If you struggle with ED, then Roman can help. Go to getroman.com/Travis for a free consultation with a licensed physician. And I guess that's all I have for right now. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.